This is Taking Stock on Bloomberg. I'm Pim Fox. Now, as we approach the Iranian presidential elections, they take place on Friday, at least the first round. Many questions arise. Will domestic policies change, or how will U.S.-Iranian relations be affected? Will foreigners invest in Iranian companies, and consequently, will they start doing more business with the country? Joining me now to give us his outlook and give us some information, Fred Nazem. He is the founder and president of the venture capital firm Nazem and Company. He's started and financed dozens of companies, including 6 that he turned into multi-billion-dollar enterprises. Fred, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Give us a little bit of a preview as to what is the current market conditions in Iran. What's the backdrop for the election? How has the economy been performing?
From what I know, I mean, I have not been there. From what I know is that they're suffering with this downturn that is going on around the world, and property prices have come down, and people, you know, it's cash flow problem everywhere. But it's a growing nation and growing population, and the kind of age group that you know that make economic movement happens is happening in Iran.
Because what, something like 60% of the population is under the age of 25?
Yeah, and so the birth rates are very high and had been. So since I left the country almost 50 years ago, it's doubled in numbers. So it's just been really a fantastic growth sort of environment.
So as someone that has an eye on business, and particularly business in the region, is there going to be any flow of investment capital into Iran anytime soon?
I thought there was some before this. Of course, everything came to us, from what I understand, to standstill with this crisis. But yes, there is a tremendous amount of activity from what I can tell, and I see a lot of people going back, doing things there. And so a lot of people ask me, you know, if the relationships between the West and the East and in Iran becomes better, you know, do you think it's going to open up? And it has to, because it's a very vibrant part of the world and a very creative bunch of people. It's really the great story about the country is that best way to look at it is the Iranians in diaspora. I mean, in the United States, I don't know how many people know, but I think it's the second largest wealthy group in the United States through the basically entrepreneurial activities that they have done from Silicon Valley to the East. So this is really that story. That's really the unsung heroes, are those people who every day are pushing all over the world and you know, making things happen, and the same thing is happening in Iran. But
so with that group of people, those entrepreneurs and business people who made it outside of the country, do you see that they would be willing to commit their capital to the Iranian domestic economy?
I would think some of them would, but you know, when they can have a little bit freer trade and you know, banking system is not frozen, and those things that are really now a problem for them. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an economist, nor have I really concentrated on. It's what I read, and so I would think so, because a lot of them love their country, and a lot of them relate to it, and it's a very fertile ground if it becomes a part of the international.
What about the oil economy in Iran? We know that that is the major earner of foreign exchange for the country, yet Iran actually imports refined product, imports a gasoline. Is there going to have to be changes to the way the government relates to the energy sector in order for there to be additional investment there?
I think so. I think what I'm seeing about the whole region, and just not for a moment, because I don't want to act, you know, like I know all those answers, but the region, I mean, starting with Saudi Arabia, I mean, they're really going into alternative energy in a very big way. It's very sunny out there. Sun energy is fantastic. I don't know why they don't use it, and that's forever. So I think that they've got the oil and they've got other sources of energy, and I think you know, you will see these alternative energy situations, you know, be followed much carefully in those parts of the world.
And got about 30 seconds. Are the U.S. prescriptions against doing business in Iran, are they effective in actually changing policy?
I have noticed that, again, as not a politician, but noticed that most of these things are not effective. I mean, anywhere. I don't know about the Iranian case, but they're not really effective in the sense that you can change people. The Iranian people, the political things could go between the two countries, but I think it's not changing, from what I can tell, it's not changing a lot.
All right, we're going to continue the conversation more with Fred Nazem about investment opportunities in Iran. This is Taking Stock on Bloomberg. A programming note, Bloomberg's Taking Stock begins each weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg 1130 AM, as well as Bloomberg.com, XM Channel 129, and Sirius Channel 130. This is Taking Stock on Bloomberg. This is Taking Stock on Bloomberg. My guest is Fred Nazem. He is the founder and president and managing partner of Nazem and Company, and he is discussing investments not only in Iran but investments overseas. Fred, now you just say that in addition to sort of focusing on what goes on in the Middle East, you're also focused on what is happening in Asia. You're just back from China. Have you been making investments there?
Yeah, I've been back and forth to China for many, many years, and particularly in the last 5-6 years. We're in the midst of some very important activity there, and I was there last week. I spent 3-4 days there and came back. It's an amazing place. Every time that I go, it just amazes me.
In what way? I mean, what, for example, do you believe that the government is going to be able to refocus the economy towards domestic consumption as opposed to export?
Yeah, it's doing it. Let me give you some examples. They are, I'm very heavy into healthcare and done a lot of work around in healthcare. And we've done some things before, but now the government has put a huge amount of money into developing healthcare. Of course, they need it badly. They spent so little on healthcare, and a lot of people, a billion of them don't have really anything like healthcare that we have in here. Not that we have great healthcare. That's a different subject. But in any event, the bottom line is that they are investing in things like that. They're investing in infrastructure. You drive around, Shanghai, Beijing, 5-lane highways, and your cell phone works with 5 bars no matter where you go. And we invented it here, but they really haven't.
But that's not new, right? I mean, this is something that, at least in the big cities, has been around for a while.
Exactly. But when you go to Beijing these days, and like I just went, I couldn't believe it. In 8 months ago, I was there. And it was like clean. It's like a European city. Things work, and the cranes came down, and everything is operating even after the Olympic. They are very proud people, and they're pushing to.
Would you be investing in healthcare companies in China right now?
Yes, that's exactly what we are doing, and we're hoping to have a fund that has been spoken about. We've been working on to really just do that, to do signal companies, so really on a global basis, so that people could copy the best practices of the U.S.
And would you want a government partner for something like that, or is that something that the government says it's okay, individual investors can go in and own 100% of the venture?
They've just done that, where you can, as an individual, own 100%. But when you work in a country like China, you better know that you're dealing with government one way or the other. Most places, particularly with healthcare, when you're dealing with people's health, hospitals and all that, you have to have a relationship. It doesn't mean that they can push you around, particularly as... See, the interesting thing about, we were talking about Iran and China. China was pretty much in the same position. Over time, what happens is that they become economically strong and things open up, and slowly. So the message is basically that's what's going to happen to most countries that we have a relationship with.
All right, I want to thank you very much, Fred Nazem, coming in from Nazem and Company, sharing your insight into what's going on in Iran and a preview of the election, which takes place on Friday, and also some investments in the healthcare sector in China.